it's on my actual page this
Yeah,
time.
you're right.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to our second meeting of the Coffee Klatch. Today we're talking about baking and probably food in general because I feel like that's unavoidable. Um, I'm working on my little shawl over here and I've got my fat chicken mug. So the excitement is all here.
And I have my llama mug, which I'm not drinking coffee out of, but and I'm in my kitchen because I'm going to make something as soon as I figure out how to share this video to my page.
I'm impressed because I can sit here and hi April. I can sit here and hi Sheila, and I can knit this mindless project while I talk to you guys, but I don't think that I could bake. So I'm super impressed with this endeavor.
So we'll see. Because today's topic, we're going to talk about baking. Um, and I was thinking about, like, I do most of my baking at Christmas. I don't do a lot during the year because I would get very large. Um, but I do have one thing that's kind of, hold on one second. I'm going to share this to my page and then I'll try to talk because I can't write and
Yeah,
talk.
it's okay. I'll just say hi to people.
I can't write and talk.
No, although I'm ever impressed with your ability to kind of, because I've been to your house and I have eaten dinner there and I have in fact eaten what you are about to bake there, and you are very good at like talking and following. Do you even use a recipe
I
at this point with this?
don't
No.
typically. If I make it enough, I have it memorized. And this one's got a pretty easy ratio, like everything's the same. So I'm going to make what's called scotcheroos. And this is something I grew up, my mom always made. And I thought it was like a normal thing, like Rice Krispie treats. Um, but then I moved around a little bit when I was a kid, and like every place we moved, no one had ever heard of it. So I don't know if it's a particularly Iowa thing, a particularly northern Midwestern thing. But if you haven't heard of a scotcheroo, it's similar to a Rice Krispie treat, but it's got peanut butter and chocolate involved. Um, oh, excuse me. And I did not have all of the well, I have all the ingredients, but in a much smaller ratio. So I'm having the recipe um, that I'm going to make today. But it's like I said, the ratios are really easy, so you can double it, triple it, do whatever. But that is what I'm going to endeavor to do in my kitchen, and I'm in my kitchen, so you can probably hear my kids upstairs playing video games.
I sent mine out. They're hiking again. We're just trying to. We have a nice day though, so it's cold, but it's sunny.
We have had rain, 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 rain.
Ugh. It's going back to terrible next week. So we're catching a little bit of sun this weekend, which I'm happy about, but it's gonna go back. So
Like March and
I
spring.
know it is. That's March, all right. No, I was gonna say it's funny because I had never heard of Scotcheroos. So you are like pretty. Well, it's funny. I'm like firmly West Coast. Like I've never lived anywhere else, and you're firmly Midwestern.
Yes.
I would say I'm more than firmly West Coast. I'm just firmly Oregonian. I've never lived anywhere else. So there's a lot of weird cultural food things which we've talked about, just like in the United States, and of course, like having friends kind of all over the place. You talk about the differences in food around the world, but I think it's interesting just partway across the country from each other. I've never heard of Scotcheroos.
Well, I was born in Iowa. Most of all of my family's from Iowa, and we moved to St. Louis after a couple other states when I was in eighth grade. And no one I've come into contact with here has ever heard of a scotcheroo before.
But
So
St. Louis
I
has
really
its own
do.
like weird stuff.
Yeah, St. Louis has its own weird stuff, most of it, which I do not care for. Unlike my St. Louis area born and bred husband who loves it all. Much to his dismay, I don't make any of that stuff. Um, so scotcheroo starts with Rice Krispies or any sort of, I don't know what they're called, puffed oats or something like that. Whatever, it doesn't have to be a brand name. Um, you do need, for a full batch, you need 6 cups, which is not quite a whole box. I typically make a batch and a half, which would be 9 cups. But today I only have 3 cups of Rice Krispies. And one thing I recommend if you're going to make this is to always measure your cereal first to make sure you have enough. Because I have oftentimes started it and then not had enough cereal. And then where's my most important ingredient of many Midwestern dessert, light corn syrup.
That shocked me to my soul when I went to your house and you just like had corn syrup.
Well, it's so funny. I remember my mom putting this on pancakes because she didn't like maple syrup.
Uh-huh.
I don't. I don't like any syrup on my pancakes, but I like vividly remember her pouring this just corn syrup on her pancakes. So anyway, so if you were making 6 cups of Rice Krispies, you would need a cup of corn syrup. But I only have 3 cups, so I have a half a cup of corn syrup, which I am putting in a saucepan on the oven. I feel like I'm doing a cooking show. It's really weird.
I know, I like it. I dig it. You've got some Iowans on here like who are familiar with the Scotcheroo and some Midwesterners in general, so.
I love Scotcheroo. I was talking to my dad the other day, and he was talking about my grandma and her church stuff, and like she is always in charge of bringing bars to church events, and they do like bar exchanges. It's like cookies too, but like bars are the big Iowan church thing, and
Like
Scotcheroo is a bar.
what other kinds of bars are there? I like honestly, that is not a thing.
I honestly don't know. I think there's a lot of fruit ones, and I don't like baked fruit, so I don't pay really much.
Oh, like the kind that are like OD cereal-y, like a um cobbler type bar. Like I've had those.
Yeah, or like lemon bars.
I don't know what that is.
I have like not ever made a lemon bar, so I'm not sure I could tell you what it's made of. But yeah, I've heard lemon bars, or I think brownies
lemon
are
bars. Yeah, I think
um,
lemon bars are.
there's probably like way more. I was always a picky eater growing up, so I don't know a lot of things just from not having any interest.
Right.
So after the half a cup of corn syrup, or 1 cup if you're doing the full recipe, then you need the same amount of sugar. Because this is a healthy
So it's
dessert.
equal parts corn syrup and sugar.
Yep.
That's
Sure is.
fantastic.
And so that goes in the saucepan too.
This is taking me back to my childhood memories where we went up to a potluck at a neighbor's house, and she had something that was that had like chocolate chips in it, and I was like, I tried it, and I was like, Mom, why does this chocolate taste so weird? And she was like, 'cause it's carob. Because we were up at these people's houses that like made things like that, and it was like off grid. It was this like super hippie thing. So yeah, no corn syrup in the pantries in Oregon so much.
Always have corn syrup. I don't know that my grandma would, because she is super like, she always likes the healthy stuff. She only makes her bars for like church stuff and holidays. But my mom always had like corn syrup on the go. So the corn syrup and the sugar just hang out in the saucepan, medium heat, until it's clear. So all the sugar has dissolved and it's clear. And another reason you like the cereal to be measured out is that when this is all done, you're going to pour it in the cereal, and that way you don't have to wait.
Yeah.
But the ingredient that gives this more flavor than just sugar and corn syrup is peanut butter.
I have to tell you guys, these are so good. Like, they blew my mind when I went and had them.
I mean, it's hard to, I mean, you have to like peanut butter and chocolate, but if you do, you're going to like it.
That's true.
So then equal part, actually, I think it's equal part peanut butter, but I'm doubting myself. So I'm going to double check. You can actually
like that. I mean, you're right. This is like a Rice Krispie treat kind of equivalent. And that is something that my mom made all the time when we were kids. Like, just all the time. Like, if that, you know, because I think she thought they were like a little healthier.
Because they had peanut butter
and
in
like
it?
cookies or something. Like it was like Rice Krispie treats you could make like of an afternoon and like just have in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Bit lighter since they have like 4 sticks of butter in them.
Yeah, they've got butter. And that's one thing this recipe does not have. Although I have to think you could probably make it with butter instead of corn syrup, but I have never tried.
So it's interesting because my grandmother and my mom's dad, who passed a long time ago, they were from the Midwest, but they moved to California when my mom was like 4, and then she moved here after she met my dad. She moved to Oregon, so so that's like and then my dad's parents are like, my grandma's from Montana, but my grandpa's from Washington, so they're very like West Coast, Pacific Northwesty. And so you would think that I would have like, I feel like we have like just a little bit of like Midwestern influence on some of the things that like my mom is used to. But then also her stepmother was from Alabama, so there are some Southern things as well that she kind of grew up with. And the big thing that my grandma made, that my mom makes, is pie, because they make really good pie crust. And I know that's really hard to do. And I have to say, like, I have not learned to make it. And like, I've given people instructions on how to do it. Because my mom has told me so many times all the things that you do to make sure that it turns out flaky, and like if you're having problems, like what you can do to fix it, but I've never actually done it.
Well, that's funny because my mom always said my grandma made the best pie crust, and like she couldn't replicate it. But so me and my sister have both tried, and I don't like pie, so I don't very rarely make it.
She doesn't like pie. I feel like this is a great video. I feel like we're going to get into the things you don't like.
Do what?
I feel like we'll have to get into the things you don't like a little bit at some point, but go on.
But anyway, but she swore that my sister got very close and that I did it. And I like, to me, like it has to be some, not about ingredients. It has to be some sort of like technique that you either
Yes,
have
it is.
or you don't.
So this is the I'll post my pie crust recipe at the end of this, and I know, or my family pie crust recipe, and I know Nicole will post some scotcheroo recipes in the comment at the end as well. But what I will say is, what I know about pie crust is the water needs to be very cold. When my mom goes back home to Southern California, she cannot just get the water out of the tap. So here, and where I live, we're on well water, and the water is really, really cold. So you can just pull it out of the tap and use it to make your pie. But if you live where the water doesn't come out of the tap super cold, try refrigerating it for a while beforehand. And then and then you have to make sure you don't overwork it. Like you barely press it together before you roll it out, because that's what makes it really tough. Which that Irish soda bread I made the other day, which I posted about here, that was kind of the same. And the second loaf was a little drier, and I overworked it just a little bit, and like it made a huge difference to the texture. And I swear I maybe kneaded it like 2 more times than I did the other one, and it made a huge difference to the texture. So I know that like with a lot of things, and pie crust is one of them, it's the overworking it that really gets you.
Okay, so the peanut butter is equal parts. So equal parts sugar, corn syrup, peanut butter, which makes it really easy to modify to however much sugar you have. And then you want the sugar to dissolve. It's not really clear. I'm not sure if it's going to show up. It's not perfectly clear. It's still a little milky, but you can tell that the sugar has all dissolved. And then you take it off the heat and you just throw the peanut butter in. So this is just, if you were making a Krispy treat, this is just like the marshmallow part. Like this is going to bind the Rice Krispie treat together. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to yell at my kids. Stop arguing! This really is just a glimpse into my life.
I know, I was going to say, this is 100% what it would be like. And see, my kids aren't here. But if they were, I mean, well, I wouldn't be doing this video in this room. But also, because my living room is like right here. And I do have 2 dogs over there sleeping on the floor. And if they hear a noise, or if my old dog thinks she hears a noise, she's going to jump up and she's going to bark, and it's going to be like a trumpet, and the other dog will be like, "Are we barking at something? Is there something to bark at?" And so he's gonna get up and bark. So just warning you now.
All right, now I'm gonna pour all of that, and I didn't put it back on the heat. The peanut butter just goes in off the heat. It melts immediately. Pour that all into the cereal. And this is the part where, like, I make this enough that I know what I like. Some people like it a little drier, and some people like it a little more, whatever this stuff would be called, the binding. And then, too, like, the recipe itself is going to make you pretty thin bars, which is often why I make 1.5 of the recipe, because then you can make the bars a little thicker, because the chocolate and butterscotch is going to go on top of that momentarily. I need to zoom. And usually, the thing I like about this recipe is it's really, you can modify it in a lot of different ways to suit your needs and what you want to do. And I don't know anybody who doesn't like them. Even my husband likes them, and he's kind of picky about desserts, which is the only thing he's picky about. Of course, if you don't like peanut butter and chocolate, you're not going to like these.
Yeah, my daughter would give this one a hard pass. She does not like peanut butter.
That's so sad.
I know.
I love peanut butter. All right, so I can't remember if you're supposed to grease the pan. I don't think so, because it's pretty probably a lot of fat in there or something in there. So I'm putting it in a loaf pan, which is very abnormal. Usually I put it in a 13x9 or an 8x8. But since it's only half a recipe, I knew they wouldn't be thick enough. And I'm being really unhygienic here and just pressing with my hand.
That's how you home cook.
It feels a little wrong current circumstances, but oh well.
When I saw a thing that like one time online that said, like, when I say this is made with love, it means that I like licked the spoon and put it back in the bowl.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically how I bake. Yeah. I mean, everyone in my house is going to have the same germs that I have. So
that's how I feel about it, yeah.
I mean, if I was making for a larger group, I probably wouldn't put my hands all over it like I'm doing right now.
But if we didn't see you, does it really matter?
Right, that's true.
You washed your hands before.
Anyway, you just press it. You could use a spatula, but this loaf pan makes it impossible, but a lot of pans make that kind of hard. So if you didn't want to put your actual finger on it or hands on it, you could put wax paper down and then push it, because really using your fingers is going to be the best way to do it. And then all you have to do is take butterscotch chips and chocolate chips and sprinkle them on top. And how much, obviously the recipe gives you how much you want to put on there, but I always wing it because I want to have the amount that I want to have. And I always put more chocolate because I like chocolate a lot. So you just sprinkle that on top. Sometimes if you work fast enough, it will melt on its own, but I probably didn't. So I'm going to just put it in the oven for like maybe a couple minutes just to get those chips melted. Like, this is a no-bake thing. The only baking is what you did on the saucepan. So that's basically it. And then once that's melted, I'll just spread it on top. And it has to cool off before you can eat it cleanly. I tend to push that a little bit.
Yeah, warm scotcheroo.
Do what?
A warm scotcheroo sounds good.
Yeah. So yes, that is scotcheroo. I have made that many, many times in my life. I try not to make it too often now because I would just sit there and eat the whole pan.
I know. I love baking, and what I've kind of settled into doing a lot of is cake. I love cake. I just made a pineapple upside down cake for the first time, and I loved it so much. And I did like a kind of winged it. Like I like to wing it with flavors and things like that. So I made for my birthday like a cake, like a white cake with lemon curd and raspberries in it, and then I did like a lemon raspberry frosting because I like fruit stuff really sour. I like my if it's gonna like I don't know if it's gonna be like a fruit dessert, I need it to be tart. Otherwise, what's the point? Kind of. So I really like to do things like that, and then I can never like tell anyone how I did it
or replicate it yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, often I can because I was going off of what I thought looked right. Although it will be a little different every time. Because that was one of those things. Like I did put some like raspberry and lemon curd in the cake batter, so I was just watching it to see like when it would be wet enough. So I'm like, I can't tell anyone how I did that. But one of the reasons that I do that is so my mom makes amazing pie, and actually so does my sister-in-law. Like my mom makes pumpkin pie and blackberry pie, and my sister-in-law makes cream pies. So it's like anything that you want is pretty much covered. And then they both actually make cookies. My mom makes the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. I love them so much. And I love like many a variety of chocolate chip cookies. I think that it's a gift that there are so many that are so good. But
my mom makes ones with orange peel and oatmeal, I want to say.
Yeah, my mom does hers with oatmeal.
But that is I used to, when I was a kid, I would get so mad when she would ruin a chocolate chip like that. But now, like, she made them for Christmas, and I was like, oh, this is, like, the best thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah. My mom doesn't put orange in. And so my favorite thing when I was a kid, my favorite stage of the cookie dough, and this is, like, I was probably flirting with E. coli all the time. Because, I've taken many a risk. Because I can't keep my hands out of, like, batter and stuff. I'm like, if I've got a beater, I'm going to lick it still. So, one of the things, like my favorite thing was when she got the white sugar, the brown sugar, the butter, and the egg mixed together. So before she put the dry ingredients in, and I was like, yeah. So I would always like take a couple spoonfuls of that.
That's pretty disgusting.
I can still taste it.
I mean, I love a good chocolate chip cookie dough, but it needs the dry ingredient.
No, I like it slimy.
Well,
it's just like sugar and butter. It's so good. My mom was always like, can you eat it before I put the eggs in? And I was like, no, because then it's like dry.
Yeah, I mean, my mom was never like, again, eating dough. She was always for batter eating.
Oh, mine too. It just grossed her out to watch me do it.
I don't let my kids do it because then there's more batter for me.
I think that's the best part about being a parent. You're like, no, you can't do that. Like, that's right, Heather. Heather knows what's up. She says the wet ingredients are the best. That's correct.
Well, you can have the dry ingredients without the wet ingredients.
So I tend to bake a lot of cake, and I think, that's something I would do all the time. But I have not done a lot of cookies. But I did I did a really elaborate, this is where I have to admit, I almost always like cake better when it comes from cake mix. Is that terrible?
No, because cake mix is pretty darn good.
I know, and it's like...
if you said frosting was better from a can.
No, I like homemade frosting better.
Yeah.
But, and especially buttercream. I would never buy, I think that stuff is disgusting. Like, I don't mind canned chocolate frosting. I prefer, to cook. There's this stovetop chocolate frosting that you make with, a whole lot of butter and the unsweetened Hershey's powder. And it used to be on the Hershey's package. And now I have to, Google it and be like, where's that old cooked recipe? It's so good. And it's just it's amazing. It's sugar and butter and white powdered sugar and basically the unsweetened chocolate, and you cook it on the stove. And I love to pour it over just a single layer chocolate cake, and then eat it hot and burn myself. So good. So yeah, I love that. But I'm I made this really elaborate cake at Christmas last year, and I did make a homemade gingerbread, a gingerbread cake kind of thing, and that was really good. I love that.
That's because I don't like pumpkin pie. we always have gingerbread at Thanksgiving. Like that's our dessert. And my grandma always made a gingerbread. I mean, it's a cake, and we put
Yeah.
just a ton of. It's so funny because we would put like I love whipped cream, but something about my grandma's gingerbread cake calls for Cool Whip. Like it just calls for it.
I think sometimes you have to have Cool Whip.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing.
Mm-mm.
And it's, it just sometimes, I think I had mine with Cool Whip that I made. And I thought it was the best. And then I made this really elaborate white chocolate cranberry cake that I found a recipe for on Pinterest. And I did a white chocolate buttercream for it. And then you like sugared up the cranberries and put them on top. And the frosting was amazing. Like some of the best frosting I've ever made. This was like buttercream with white chocolate chips in it. It was so good. And I just thought the cake was too dense. And sometimes and maybe it's me, like maybe I'm making a mistake, but sometimes the homemade cakes that do a lot of butter and no oil, like I find they're just a little dense for my taste. And I think that's maybe being like raised on boxed cake.
That could be.
The old Betty Crocker cake, which is kind of a staple of my childhood.
Yeah, I mean, my mom would always make a chocolate box cake, and then she would home make white buttercream frosting. Like that is still like to me just the perfect dessert / breakfast.
Well, you know what I ask for my birthday every year, which my mom made for me too, is banana cake with buttercream frosting. But I love banana cake, and I feel like I'm in the very vast minority of people.
I mean, banana bread is very popular.
Yes, and I like banana bread, but banana cake has frosting on
it. Sure.
I love zucchini bread, though.
Eh.
It's the only thing you can do with zucchinis, let's be real.
It's true. And we have been part of a CSA before where it's inundated with zucchinis, and I have tried literally everything.
Everything. So have I. It's the only acceptable thing.
Yeah. I've made zucchini noodles, and
those are okay.
It's passable, but
fine. I've done that.
I'd rather have a real noodle.
I mean, let's be real. Yeah. A real noodle's better.
Totally.
Like, nothing's ever going to be better than pasta.
No.
So, like, what... I mean, we're not being short again. I don't think we know how to be. Like, no, what... Like, I know we were going to talk about baking, but I was curious, like, what were your, like, favorite childhood meals?
Like, food meals?
Yeah, like, food.
Roast beef is my favorite. My grandma would make roast beef and noodles. And I don't really like the noodles. And they're, like, homemade noodles. And then I think you put, like, maybe gravy. I never really liked them, so I never really made them. But that was what I used to ask for on my birthday, was roast beef. And then my grandma or my mom would make the roast beef and noodles and canned green beans.
I love canned green beans.
Literally my favorite meal is just roast beef and canned green beans.
I love canned green beans.
I do too. I like them much better than fresh green beans.
Oh yeah, no, I like, there's a variant of most vegetables that I like. There's not a whole lot of vegetables that I just won't eat, but I don't really enjoy fresh green beans, I have to say. No. Really, really love them from a can though, which, yeah. And so I don't like, I really don't like fish very much, tuna being the exception, but my dad has always been an avid outdoorsman, and he is a hunter and a fisherman, so I grew up eating a lot of game, and large game, I'm okay with that. Like, I can eat any of that. And basically, like, sometimes, like, it got to a point where one time my mom bought hamburger meat, like, from a cow, and she was cooking it, and I was like, why does that smell so weird? Because I was so used to, like, deer and elk and things like that, and it's different. And, like, it used to just taste, that's what tasted normal to me. But I have never liked fish very much. Like, so my dad used to go catch trout. But when my dad would go fishing, my mom would cook chicken rice-a-roni and canned green beans. And so I was always really excited, and I would take, like, whatever amount of fish was deemed, like, the acceptable. You know, when you're a kid, there's, like, that acceptable amount. Like, my brother, to this day, I will watch him in front of my mom. He'll put, like, 2 green beans on his plate, because when he was a kid, he had to take 2. of whatever green thing was on the table.
Yeah.
And he hates vegetables. So he would he'll still do it. He's like 2, like on his plate. So I would take like whatever amount of fish was acceptable and then load my plate up with canned green beans and chicken rice-a-roni.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing that my mom made, 2 favorite things, and I think this is just like, again, this is one of those things that like it's the recipe on the soup can, because I found out that someone else I know who grew up across the country from me had the exact same like family recipe, and it was for stroganoff that you make with like Campbell's cream of mushroom soup. And I just think it's like it was on the soup can.
Yeah.
So my mom used to make that, and that was one of my very favorite things. You put like tons of sour cream in it, and hamburger and noodles and Campbell's soup, Campbell's cream of mushroom, and then enchiladas were the other thing that my mom used to make all the time. That was like my very favorite thing. And those I do make. Those I make when I want to impress someone with my cooking, because pretty much, and I mean, you ate them, maybe you were being nice, I don't know. Like, but the, like pretty much usually people are like into those. So I'm like, that's a pretty safe, and you can't mess it up because it's super easy.
Yeah.
Because one of the great things about my my mom's home cooking, and if she's watching this, I hope she knows I mean it in a good way, is it's like they're like semi-homemade. It's like the fine art of like figuring out which things you can get from a can.
Did you ever watch that show?
Yeah, semi-homemade with Sandra Lee. I was going to say that, but I was like, but her stuff, like, okay, in fairness, I only ever saw the Kwanzaa cake video that got passed around the internet.
Oh, no,
so
I've actually seen episodes of the show.
Huh?
I said I've actually seen episodes of the show.
Does it get less ridiculous than that Kwanzaa cake?
I'm sure it gets less ridiculous, but how much, I'm not sure.
Right, so I'm like, I wanted to say that that's kind of what it was, but I feel like it's in a much tastier and more reasonable way.
Yeah.
But I actually just feel like what we grew up with was like, it was a very, like a very standard, like thrifty kind of way of eating, which I think, you know, was relevant to our lives and our situation. But then too, like, you know, my mom, and like she would sometimes be like, oh, I'm going to make like hash browns and hot dog pieces or like beanie weenies, because she would crave it sometimes, because when she was growing up, like her dad was on strike for an extended period of time, like from the shipyards it was in San Diego. And so there was no work and all that kind of stuff. And so I think there was a lot of, and she had a single dad for a long time. So it's like, it was food that was easy, food that was cheap. There were a lot of kids. And they were always kind of rent dodging and things like that. So she comes from an even more kind of austere upbringing, where you just kind of made do with what you had and kind of put things together to make it as tasty as possible. So I think that's kind of the sensibility, which is to me like good home. It's like good home cooking, like more than I think things made from scratch almost.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like my husband grew up with box cakes and box, or like store-bought frosting and stuff like that. So he prefers store-bought frosting, which I think is an atrocity.
That's a horror.
But that was what he grew up with. So that's like his childhood memory. But we had to buy, my youngest son's birthday is tomorrow, and I wasn't sure what we would be able to get. So we bought some like emergency box cake and store-bought frosting, and that's what we're probably going to end up having to use. So I'm probably just going to leave my part plain. I really do not like store-bought frosting at all. But they want to help make everything. They love to bake. I am a little bit of a control freak when it comes to baking, and hate baking with them because they don't listen at all or follow the correct steps. But my mother-in-law, bless her, loves to cook with them, so they get to cook plenty, and I don't have to let them help.
My kids, it's always like, so we've done quite a few years now, we've done like a cookie decorating party, and like one of our lovely neighbors has like made all the frosting and like done all the coloring, and like she just brings it for my kids and for a few other kids to do. My mom bakes the cookies. Like I don't have to do anything but show up. But then like they always like end up flinging everything on the cookie, and they get bored, and then there's like a ton left. So I'm like, I end up sitting there like painstakingly decorating cookies for hours, because like my kids just get bored halfway through.
Yeah,
Or like, are we
I
done though?
love decorating cookies. I actually took a cake decorating class with my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law one time, and I love all of that. But I don't have the patience for dealing with other people while I'm doing that. So I end up doing it by myself a lot. Or um, we have a Christmas cookie day with my mother-in-law. We usually do a cookie day with my mom, and they're much better at dealing with their grandchildren than I am at dealing with people like mixing frostings or not
Let's
doing.
be real though. They're better with the grandchildren than they were with us.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe not my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is like the sweetest person on the face of the planet. I'm pretty
My
sure
mom's
she's
pretty
that way with
sweet.
her kids too. But
Yeah.
my mom, yeah, not so much. I love my mom.
I was gonna say I like that about your mom, so I know that that's a compliment
Right, and
because I've met your mom and she's
she knows.
yeah, she's delightful.
I will say that like that was my grandma always decorated sugar cookies was huge. Like we always made sugar cookies. Valentine's Day, Easter, Christmas, like anytime we could find themed cookie cutters, we would make sugar cookies. My mom makes the best cookies, sugar cookies, which I'm sure came from my grandma. And I like remember decorating sugar cookies with my grandma. I don't remember decorating sugar cookies with my mom, and I'm trying to figure out if that's because I just don't remember it, or if she literally did what I'm doing and pushed it off onto the grandparents until
Oh,
I was
that's
older. I
funny.
remember doing it like as a college age person, but not like a child.
Right. Okay. Do you like thick chewy sugar cookies or like the thin crunchy sugar cookies?
I like all sugar cookies.
Yeah.
They're homemade. I we make
Robot sugar cookies are a scourge.
yeah. The my aunt makes the best like thick, soft, chewy sugar cookies at Christmas. I don't know. I don't have her recipe. Um, but we always talk about like you have to get Vicky's sugar cookies. But the ones that came from my grandma, it's actually I believe a Swedish sugar cookie recipe, and they're much thinner and what's the word? Not hard, but crunchier.
I know what you mean because I actually have had Swedish sugar cookies before, and I think they are my favorite sugar cookie I've ever had. But it's no one in my family that makes them, so I've only had them a couple of times.
Yeah, that's
Um,
typically what we make.
what is your most controversial baking slash dessert opinion?
Probably that I don't like pie.
That is pretty controversial.
Yeah, I
I am
mean
no kind.
everybody's free to like pie. I just don't like. I don't like pie crust.
Okay.
I don't like cheesecake. I just don't like
I
a lot of things.
okay, but like cheesecake, like much like coconut, I feel like cheesecake is one of those things. It's not like people either like it or they don't.
Yeah.
And then within cheesecake, there's a whole textural situation. So like either like there's different kinds. So like I personally will eat anything because it's dairy, so I'm good with that. But like I know people who are like very opinionated on the texture. I'm like there's some I like better, but I'll pretty much eat anything. Um, I think my most controversial baking opinion is that there is no homemade brownie that tastes as good as a box brownie.
I am. I almost agree with you. I feel like I found a pretty good one because it's very heavy. It had like I made it so long ago, but it had like 5 different kinds of chocolate in it.
Mm.
So like it's like if you find one that's like heavy on the chocolate and the different varieties of chocolate, you can get close
But
to
then,
about.
like, why wouldn't I just add oil and eggs to my Ghirardelli mix?
But I mean, that's the thing. Is like
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth the effort to make. Just like the same with like cake. Like I have not made a cake from scratch in years because I think a box cake is just fine. Although my mom told me a trick and I haven't tried it yet. But she said if you make box cake with milk instead of water,
Ooh.
that it's supposed to it tastes more like a bakery cake. So I'm gonna actually try that tomorrow with my son's birthday cakes.
Report back.
Yes, because I would like that to be true.
So I'm gonna look at the comments just because you got a pie question there, so that's like relevant. Stephanie says, "What about like French silk or peanut butter pie with graham cracker or cookie crust?"
Um, so then my texture issues come into play. I used to eat French silk pie. I could eat a peanut butter pie, but I don't like pudding, and it's not because of the taste, it's because of the texture of it. I just don't like that feeling in my mouth.
So, fun fact, guys, if you've read Wild Ride Cowboy, I based Clara's eating habits off of Nicole. And Clara is one of my most controversial heroines because what I found out is that there are many people who feel that being a picky eater is like a moral issue. People
Like
are
in
very
what way?
angry.
Like they're mad that she's a picky eater?
They're super mad she's a picky eater. I have never gotten such really angry reviews that they're like, she's a child. How dare she? Like, she can't eat an onion.
Well, I find that offensive.
Well, I was like, is that a commentary on the fact that some people were like made to sit and finish their food? Like, it's like people who are forced to write with their right hand. You know what I mean? Like, is this like a deep internal anger because they were not allowed to be picky?
Yeah, my mom did not make me eat things that I didn't like. Mostly because I have a really bad vomit reflex. So I would just throw up. My oldest here. So I am being paid back for that. But yeah, fun time.
Yeah, so I'm not picky, and my husband thinks that I am, which irritates me because he grew up eating, in some cases, literally garbage. So it's really interesting though, and I mean, this is kind of a terrible thing to like get into on video, but because he was sometimes hungry as a child, so it was like, oh well, if there's food, you're going to eat all the food. We were married for like 10 years before he could say, I don't think I like that. Like, he told me, again, we married like 10 years, and he's like, you know what? I don't like peas. He was like, they're fine. He was like, they're fine, but they're really not that great, and they're not worth the effort that it takes to eat them. They roll around on the plate.
My husband has not gotten there yet. He's always like, it's okay. I know that he doesn't like something when he says it's okay. Or when there's food left over. And he'll be like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm like, that's how I like, so you don't like it. And he's like, no, it's okay. I'm like, there's a difference between I will shove this in my mouth and swallow it, and I like this hate.
Yes. Yeah.
And he does not have that figured out.
No, and that it took him a really long time to get there. Like, and then also to not clean everybody's plates.
Yeah, that my husband does that.
Yeah. And see, like you, I was not made to eat things I did not like. Like, we had to try it.
Yeah.
Yes. But no, and we were not made to clean our plates because my mom had a bad experience with that kind of thing. And there's a whole story about being forced to eat liver, which her older brother then came in. My mom is basically a romance heroine, but her older brother like came in and ate it all in like 2 bites and finally liberated her from the kitchen. She'd been sitting there for hours not going, I don't know how I'm going to eat this. So, and then my dad is actually really a picky eater. Like, he still is. Like, he's just like got the most like basic like white bread taste in the entire world. So he banned Brussels. I had never had a Brussels sprout till I was an adult.
I didn't either because my mom doesn't like them. Like,
my dad hates them, and he wouldn't let my mom cook them in the house because he hates how they smell so much.
I mean, that's how I figured out. Like, my mom didn't really like fish. And so we never had like I figured out the things that I never grew up eating are the things that my mom didn't like. She didn't make them. So I didn't have Brussels sprouts until I was older. I actually like Brussels sprouts.
I do too. I actually like them a lot. Cooked the right way, I really like them. So that's something that I've like eaten a lot of as an adult. I also I don't know how I love cabbage, and didn't really have any until I was older because it was like, unless it was mixed in a salad. Like, if it was mixed in a salad or if it was coleslaw, then I had it because my dad likes coleslaw. But that was another thing. Like, my dad is like, he's so meat and potatoes-esque. Like, so every meal had to have meat. Like,
yes.
Is your husband like that?
Midwestern.
Is it Midwestern?
There's no dinner without meat except spaghetti. You can have spaghetti without meat.
Oh, we could not have spaghetti without meat. It had to have ground beef.
Spaghetti and some ragu? Oh, that was like a staple of because that was like the one thing my dad would make. Would be just spaghetti and throw a can of ragu in there.
Yeah, no.
That. Yeah.
And like, there had to be a vegetable. And I want to say the only real exception to that would be like enchiladas, because that's like a one pan kind of thing. But then there was always beans, and there was had to be corn chips. Like, all my weird combination things I totally inherited from my dad. Like, because there's certain things, if he has them, he has to have these other things. And I'm like, I'm totally like that. And if there's chocolate, there has to be milk. My dad doesn't drink coffee. So, and no hot drinks of any kind. So like no tea, no coffee. He doesn't like any of it. So desserts have to have milk. And I actually had like gallons of milk at my wedding because I had chocolate cake and I was like, I've got to have milk with my chocolate cake. I'm a classy lady. Okay, so somebody has asked. Yeah, we'll go ahead and if you guys want to like ask us some questions, I know there's a couple on our graphic that I'm going to answer because we're just like we'll go on and on. Stephanie asked. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and answer. I was going to say my husband was actually raised a vegetarian, and he was vegan for a while, so he does not need there to be meat, but he is a meat eater now, so he is like. And he's probably more into it than I am because I'm kind of like, wow, what a novelty. Like, I could cook something without meat and no one would care. And he's kind of like, well, now I can have meat, so I'm going to have it. Because he has moved away from that path. That was not his choice. That being a vegetarian wasn't his choice. He was raised that way. So is there anything you didn't like as a child that you like now? I hated beets and spaghetti and now eat both at least 2 times a month.
I didn't like potato salad because I don't really like potatoes, but I like potato salad. I think it's because it just tastes like I put a lot of mustard in it. It just tastes like
so
mustard.
Close to St. Patrick's Day to be making proclamations like that.
I really like very few potatoes will I eat. I don't even like French fries if they're too fat and potatoey in the middle.
Oh my gosh, I love potatoes.
I know.
But I am very Irish. So I'm like, give me a potato basically in any form that I could live off of potatoes.
I could not.
Anyway, go on.
So potato salad.
I used to not like curry at all. Like I didn't like the flavor of it at all. Now I love it. And like crave it all the time. Like it's really strange because I specifically hated that flavor. Like I remember and I'm not that picky. I don't like mustard though. That's one of the things that I don't like, which it bothers me that I don't like mustard because I find it completely out of step with everything else that I enjoy because I really like vinegary things and I like sour things and I don't know why I don't like mustard. But now if I get it on a sandwich, I don't have to send it back. Like I can reduce it and eat it, but I still don't like it.
I don't like mayonnaise.
Right.
Mixed with mustard, I like it's fine because I just taste the mustard. But I don't like mayonnaise, and I used to not be able to eat a sandwich that had any mayonnaise on it. Now I can scrape it off, even if there's a little mayonnaise remnant. I will eat it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I love mayonnaise, but my brother is the picky eater, but also he ate weird things. Like, but he used to get a hamburger with like only ketchup. That was it. Okay. But he then would also put applesauce on his macaroni and cheese. Applesauce was one of the things he ate.
Yeah.
And he ate macaroni and cheese.
Why does he have to mix them?
I don't know. To this day, I don't know. He put applesauce on his hot dogs too. To this day, don't get it. And I don't think, and he's not a super picky eater now. He actually always surprises me because he eats really spicy food and stuff, and which my dad can't do. And I can't really either. And he's gotten kind of adventurous, my brother has, but I remember when he was a kid, if there was like a piece of lettuce in his like Taco Bell burrito, he would know.
Yeah.
He was like, there's something green in here. And I've always loved salads. That's a really weird thing. So when I only have one sibling, my brother's 2 years and 8 months younger than me. And so when my mom was pregnant, she craved, like green salad with Newman's olive oil and vinegar dressing, saltine crackers, and cottage cheese. And she used to feed it to me when I was like 2. And so I still eat that. And I found out later that like not everybody puts saltines in their salads. And I realized that was maybe like not a fancy, like we're not fancy. You think we're buying croutons? I realized that was like the poor man's crouton recently. I was like, I just thought that's what you did at home. I didn't even know you could buy croutons for your house. What do you think this is?
It's funny though because when you get like a salad at like Pizza Hut, like at the salad bar, they have crackers, so that has to be like a thing. But
I crunch them up in my salad at a salad bar.
Yeah,
but I've actually never met anyone else that does that.
Yeah. I will say the weirdest thing I did as a kid, which is sort of anti my pickiness, but I used to like, I still like tuna fish. I can't always eat it, but I like tuna fish, like a canned tuna fish.
I do too.
Every day
Contrarily.
for lunch, for like school, I would have a turkey sandwich, and it would be that Carl Buttig turkey, like the cheapest lunch meat you can get.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would, when we were home, I would put my tuna in a slice of turkey and roll it up and eat it like a burrito. I have no idea why, but I remember doing that. Um, but yeah, not anymore.
I'll eat a lot of things, man, but that's
Gross. I'm
sketchy.
not gonna lie. I don't know what was my problem.
And then I think like, oh, I was gonna say there's like one other weird. Oh, the other thing that I just realized was weird was JoJo's being at pizza parlors and that you dip them in ranch.
Yeah, we
So
don't have them at all.
JoJo's are potato rounds or wedges that you can get at pizza parlors in Oregon. I'm pretty sure it like does extend up into Washington. But I feel like it's very Pacific Northwest. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it in Idaho, but I have no confirmation on that. But I thought it was funny that like that's not a common thing because just any pizza parlor you can get potatoes and ranch, and like pizzeria ranch is a thing.
It is. That is a thing, regardless of JoJo.
And it's better than any other ranch.
It is, and you can never find a replica. Me and my mom talk far more than we should about trying to find a good ranch dressing that you can buy in the store to bring home.
I know nothing is like that, and like Ken's claims to be that. I don't know if you have that brand, but it's not. I always get Hidden Valley, so
yeah.
Okay, they call them JoJo's in Indiana. I'm assuming that's a typo. And oh, Heather says when I was pregnant with my son, I had a terrible aversion to red meat, and I still don't eat as much red meat as I used to. Weirdly, I was put off iced coffee during my second pregnancy, and it took me years to be able to like enjoy it again. Huh?
I do not like iced coffee.
I like it if it's like I like a frappuccino.
I like a coffee shake.
Like yeah, but like an iced, like I do like them, and I will drink them like an iced latte or whatever. But like I used to like them a lot more, and then weirdly, when I was pregnant, I tasted some flavor like underlying the coffee, and could never quite untaste it. Very strange. I also got vertigo from a pregnancy that never went away. Fun time. Sheila says, "Do you make menus for the week?" Yes, sometimes, and then I don't stick to it.
Yeah, I don't, and that's why, because I know I won't stick to it. I do know, like, so the way my husband's work schedule is, I know that he is going to take, so if he's on nights, I need to make dinner before he goes to nights, and then he takes leftovers as his, like, meals throughout the night, and if he works days, I need to make dinner the night before so that he has leftovers to take when he works the next day. So, like, I know that on those days, I have to make something that I know is going to have leftovers that he can take to work and heat up at work. And by have to, I mean most of the time if I feel like it. But I'm usually a pretty nice wife. But yeah,
it's true. It's the weirdest thing about her.
I'm very nice.
To him.
He might not confirm that all the time, but yeah. So I know what days I'm going to make something that needs to have leftovers, or if we have like. Not right now, but soccer or baseball, I know I have to make something quick. Like, I know certain days are more suited for certain meals, but I do not plan it out in advance unless it's like, oh, I'm going to the store. What am I going to make for the next 3 days that I need ingredients for? And then sometimes I'll still be like, can we just get pizza?
Yeah, I made a little meal plan because we are kind of here at home, and I have forgotten multiple days in a row to get my whole chicken out of the freezer. And right now, my flat freezer, like, honestly, like, first world problems. My flat freezer is next door. Because for those of you who don't know, I'm living in a rental next door to my actual house, which is being remodeled, but my garage is still intact. So my flat freezer is in the garage. And that's where, like, all my meat is. And I keep, and, like, I'll remember, like, late at night, I was like, oh, I was going to get a chicken out. I'm not going to walk over there. It's cold and it's dark and I don't want to get eaten by a cougar. So, and you think I'm being dramatic, but we have cougars. So it's a real concern. Probably not as much as I am lazy, but oh well. So we do have a couple more questions over on our graphic. And this is about writing and books. So Deanna asks, what is your favorite book? And I feel like that is too hard of a question for a Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
It's so mood dependent.
Yeah, and I just have different favorites, for
Yeah.
different things. And I have said for a long time that my favorite romance novel is Birthright by Nora Roberts. Um, I have since read a lot that probably match up to it, um, but it has been my favorite for a very long time. And
Um,
the non-romance is Prodigal Summer by Barbara Kingsolver, which does not have a happy ending. Well, kind of. Parts of it do. But is a beautiful book that I love very much.
since I did this book in a book club, I know that people have like differing opinions on it, but my go-to if I was going to like recommend a book, like if I'm trying to kind of like hook somebody in, is What I Did for a Duke by Julianne Long, because I think it's just a really romantic book. And I think not like it's sexy, but not so much that it like is like would be shocking to someone who wasn't used to it. He's really like a very alpha kind of Duke hero, but he's very kind. So I feel like it's not like an edgy recommendation, and I really love it. And then Marcy asked, in the last episode of the Coffee Klatch, you both mentioned reading inspirational fiction and romance. Did either of you ever consider writing in that genre?
Personally, I did not, because at the time that I started writing, I wasn't really reading inspirational anymore because I enjoyed the more physical parts of a romantic relationship. Um, so, and I've since, like, some of my intrigues are closed doors, which none of my early, or don't have any at all, which none of my early books were. So, like, I think tastes change, and um, what you think about writing changes, but that was never in the plan for me, because finding non-inspirational romance was like, oh, this is what I have been
Yeah.
truly searching for.
And I too, like when I started writing, had gotten away from reading inspirational. But when I was looking into writing for Harlequin, I did look at their love inspired guidelines. I looked at Desire, Presents, and Love Inspired, primarily because that's what I had experience like reading in the past. Not love inspired specifically, but that I did read inspirational romance. And I read a lot of Desire, and I read a lot of Presents, and I read a lot of Francine Rivers, which she's very edgy. Like, there's nothing about those books that is tame at all. And reading the guidelines for Love Inspired, I remember being kind of overwhelmed by like the things that you couldn't do. And obviously, I think all the Harlequin lines have those like guidelines, and I think it's all just about like what you feel like you can make work within that. And at the time, I just couldn't see how I could do that. Like, I could see a way where I could do maybe like a Francine Rivers kind of thing, because she does get into just some really messy stuff. And I'm not saying that Love Inspired doesn't. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. I think it's a particular skill, though, to know that, like, to meet certain criteria and standards, like, you have to tell a story within that does all those things. And I just didn't feel like I could see a way to do that. And then Desire, they wanted a query letter before you sent material. And I was like, I don't know how to write a query letter. And Present said that you could send 3 chapters. And I was like, I think I could write a pretty good 3 chapters, though. So that was how I submitted to Presents. That's my like long-winded why I submitted to Presents instead of Love Inspired or Desire. Just because I was like, I don't think I could impress anyone with my like qualifications, but like I can write a pretty mean couple of chapters, so maybe I'll do that. And Grace says, what books are you into currently? I just started reading the In Death books by J.D. Robb because I'm like 1,000 years late to that party, but I'm enjoying them.
I've been reading. I just finished Chasing Cassandra, which is Lisa Kleypas' new book. So that I am very much a binge reader. Like, when I find someone I like, I go read like all their stuff. And I have read a lot of Lisa Kleypas' stuff, but I found a series of hers that I hadn't read. So I've been reading the Bow Street Runners now that I finished Chasing Cassandra.
Yeah, I'm that way too. I did a Kleypas binge a couple of years ago, and I still have like she's written a lot of books, so I still have a few to get caught up on when I go back to that. Did a Julia Quinn binge fairly recently. And I remember I did like, I don't read a lot of paranormal romance, but I did like a Nalini Singh. I had a Nalini Singh like 2 months where I just like read the entire Side Changeling series. I love a binge.
I mean, like, whenever I'm stuck, either writing or reading, I go find a Nora Roberts book I haven't read, and then I will either find all the ones I haven't read, or I will reread the ones I've forgotten, like the specifics of. And I will do that for like 10, 12, 15 books sometimes, depending.
Yeah. I like it. It's comforting too. It's like, that's why I like TV series when I'm like kind of stressed out, because if you can like go back to familiar characters. But we won't talk about TV because we're going to talk about TV in another episode, and movies. So we've got some things that'll have to be 2 different episodes because I could talk about TV for way too long.
For like ever.
Forever. And I'm like, when people are like writers that are like, you know, oh, I don't own a TV. I'm like, why? It's more stories.
Yep.
I love stories in all forms.
All forms.
All forms. I love movies, books, TV. So we'll be talking about that coming up, because I'm like, oh, I've got a lot of like movies and TV I could talk about. So yeah, so more to come. We're gonna post recipes in the like comments on the end of this video. I'm gonna share my pie recipe. I will see if I can get a hold of that. My mom's chocolate chip cookie recipe. I don't think it's in anything. It's like on a recipe card. Her pie crust recipe is the same, but I had written it up for a blog post a long time ago, so I actually have it. And then we'll be back on Tuesday. Topic to be determined. Maybe TV, maybe movies. We'll see. And we will see you guys then. So I hope you have a good day. Bye.